Now, 225 cases, 53 recoveries and 10 fatalities. Those are the numbers on this Wednesday, the 15th day of April 2020, exactly a month and 2 days since the first case of the coronavirus was announced in the country, and a new normal is quietly setting in, and Kenyans are becoming accustomed to early nights, early mornings and shorter working hours. Containment measures are taking root as the government rushes to check the spread of the disease. The infections, however, continue to rise, so does the body count, and a sprinkling of recoveries fueling hope that together we shall overcome. And beneath the veil of numbers are men, women and children directly battling the disease as patients and healthcare givers. Now, those who won the battles, those who have lost it, and the thread that holds them together. Now, team coverage Wednesday lifts the veil and turns the light on the faces of the pandemic in the country and across the border in Uganda. But first, the highlights.
Tonight, fresh concerns of community infection as 9 more test positive for the coronavirus.
None of them has a history of travel, and none of them was in a quarantine center.
Also tonight,
we are not out of danger.
The counties dance with death as government takes the war against the virus to their doorstep. Plus, the healthcare warriors in the front line push on.
A lot of anxiety, a lot of panic, not knowing what to do.
On team coverage tonight, we put faces to the numbers, tell you of the battles won and lost as we count the cost of the pandemic. And also tonight, 10,000 shillings for one of these. Bungoma governor is washing his hands off it, but county documents show it's quite a stubborn stain.
Live from the Nation Centre, this is NTV Tonight with Ken Mijungu.
Glad you could join us tonight. Our sign language interpreter is Flora Atieno. Here's the team behind the faces of the pandemic tonight. Working from home is our innovation and training editor, Dan Mwangi. Leila Mohammed and our business and technology reporter, Victor Kiprop, are right here in studio. Joining us from Eldoret is Lois Wangoi, while Melita Oletenges is live from Nyeri. Raymond Mujuni from our sister network, NTV Uganda, is live from Kampala. But first, the top stories of the day. And we begin with the global numbers. As of today, the total number of infections stand at 2,008,850. Now, the numbers of the global deaths stand at 129,045, while the recoveries are at 502,389. In the United States, the number of infections are at 613,187. The death toll is at 26,119, while those who have recovered so far is 50,107. On the day following an announcement by President Donald Trump that the U.S. will halt the annual contributions made to the World Health Organization. Well, let's now move to our top story tonight. And this is as clusters of the coronavirus continue to pop up. The government is grappling with how to stop what now appears to be community infections. For the first time, all the 9 of those who tested positive in the last 24 hours did not have a history of travel, nor were they in any quarantine facility, raising concerns that the disease is now circulating within the country. NTV's Kenneth Muredi also reports that the intended mass testing will reveal the true extent of the pandemic in the country.
The government is tonight asking you to tick all the boxes insofar as adhering to guidelines to stop the spread of the coronavirus is concerned, even as it rolls out mass testing. The grim caution is compounded by the revelation that all the 9 people who've tested positive in the last 24 hours had no travel history and had not been in any quarantine facility. And despite the Ministry of Health issuing guidelines on how to beat the virus, including a containment in 4 counties, a night curfew, and calling for social distancing and hand hygiene, there are fears that the numbers could still flare up.
We are aware that the game changer in all this We will be mass testing, isolating, and treating.
Mass testing started at the Kenyatta Hospital on Tuesday, with frontline health workers being the first in line. Another team was sent to Kibra, one of the capital's and country's most densely populated areas. This program will be extended to the counties.
We are aware that there are those looking at our figures and celebrating a bit too early. Let me send out a word of caution. We are not out of danger.
Kenya now has a total of 225 infections, 10 deaths, and 53 recoveries this far since the first case was announced.
A comparative review of the countries now being overrun by the virus shows that they were reporting similar figures as we are now. You will note that our 4.6% death rate is within the global range of 6.3%. Our figures should therefore not delude or deceive any of us into dropping the ball.
However, there is a glimmer of hope amid the darkness of the pandemic.
The more you test, the more you are likely to create quarantine facilities and isolation facilities. If we do that, then we have a projection where then the growth in the numbers will not be the growth that we have seen in other countries.
The next 1 month remains crucial for the country, as it will reveal on whether we are winning this war against COVID-19 or not, or whether we are flattening the curve or not. The government is still calling upon you to adhere to the rules that it is releasing on a daily basis in an effort to win the war completely. Kennedy Mureithi, NTV in Nairobi County.
Of course, even as these numbers are given by the government, there is fear that there could be even more reports coming from the counties. That's why the government is taking deliberate steps to ensure that the counties are even more secure. One of the steps that was taken close to a week ago is the one that ensures that the borders are locked from Nairobi, Kwale, Kilifi and Mombasa. And the government is still pushing on this and ensuring. Today the police IG was in the coast region and is still there for one more day, and they're ensuring that there's complete compliance with what's happening around the country. So it's very important that you observe these simple rules and regulations that have been given by the government. Let's now talk about counties across the country which are still scrambling to prepare for a potential COVID-19 outbreak. Now, Mombasa trades the capital with the number of infections, contributing to the coast region tally of 49 as of today. Now, the alarm bells are now going off after 21 counties reported the infections. And as the government takes the war against the virus to the doorstep, NTV's Kevin Mutai now reports.
COVID-19 cases in the coast region could rise exponentially in the coming days as 4 more people tested positive today for the virus. Mombasa trails Nairobi in the number of infections with a total of 38 cases. Kilifi County has 10 cases. The wave of illness could have arrived late, but counties are now bracing the impact as 21 of them report infections and the county's tally races past the 200 mark.
Early today, I dispatched a high-level team from the Ministry of Health to Siaya County on an urgent mission. The team, which is led by Acting Director General of Health, Dr. Patrick Amoth, is currently examining the status of the quarantine and isolation facilities in Siaya County.
The Council of Governors now says that isolation centers equipped with over 3,000 beds have been set up in all the 47 counties. 5 billion shillings from the County Emergency Fund have also been set aside to fight the spread of the virus.
No county has received sample collection kits or testing kits. We urge the national government to fast-track distribution of the kits as counties are eager to engage on testing of patients in order to contain the pandemic.
Nobody is in competition with anybody. All of us collectively, we have agreed that we have to find ways to positively contribute in saving lives.
But even as the county heads put their heads together on how to beat the virus, their people continue on a daily dalliance with death. A farmer in Muranga was arrested today for ferrying his 47 casual workers in a lorry In total disregard of the social distancing guideline, 5 others were being ferried in a pickup truck.
Wewe ukiwa ni mtu ukaa kando na sheria nayo ina mkono mrefu na utaweza kuepuka. Mfano ni huu sasa. Huyu mzee alifikiri kufungia watu kwa lori haitaweza kujulikana.
Sisi tutawapeleka quarantine ama pahali penye tutawazuia kwa wiki 2 weeks at their own cost. Ili wakuwe examples ya wengine.
In some markets in the counties, for instance this one in Kisumu, social distancing is still a distant idea. The Inspector General of Police, Hilary Mutembai, who is on a 2-day tour of the coast region, has directed police to fully effect COVID-19 protocols as the fight against the spread of the virus continues.
Mombasa, Kwale and Kilifi counties within the coast region have been marked as the hotspot for COVID-19, with the government threatening to impose stiffer measures to keep the virus at bay.
All people should put on the face masks. These are tracts. Failure to that, these are tracts, a stiff fine of 20,000 or imprisonment of 6 months or both if you fail to comply.
Mass testing of people is expected to start soon in Mombasa after the government announced the dispatch of 1,000 testing kits. Kevin Mutai, NTV, Mombasa.
Away from Mombasa, from that to our team coverage, the faces of the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, the number of infections this week crossed the 2 million mark, but the world is hopeful. In fact, some parts are already considering lifting tough rules and regulations to check the spread of the coronavirus. Now, Denmark specifically, for example, is allowing children below the age of 11 back to school. Leila, you have been looking at the numbers.
Well, Mijungu, clearly you've spoken before and said there are about over 2 million people across the globe who have currently being treated for the coronavirus. And among these, there are 100,000 people who have lost the battle. But despite the doom, there is a ray of hope, with over 400,000 people who have recovered across the globe, including about 50 here in the country. And since December 2019, when the first case was officially reported in China, millions of patients have and are currently going through treatment in various hospitals across the globe, including here in Kenya as well. I spoke to one patient who just returned home from hospital after winning the battle against COVID-19, albeit in a faraway land.
Okay.
Stephen Kinuthia will be spending the next 7 days in this space in his home, the final step in the monitoring imposed by French health officials before recovered COVID-19 patients can resume their normal lives. He was last here 2 weeks ago, just before testing positive for COVID-19 disease.
I've transformed my office downstairs to a bedroom, to my own bedroom, but there will be a follow-up for them to see how I improve, and at the same time to see that they will follow up my family to see whether there is any viral or contagious issues. Different sides of the chest, other lungs.
That test, a result of him exhibiting the worrying COVID-19 symptoms.
When I went to do the scanner, immediately the radiograph, or the people who are doing the scanner, they saw that I'm in a very bad state. And the French system is that once you are in any medical, be it private or public, they call the ambulance, and the ambulance brought me here. From hospital.
France is among a number of European countries that have been severely hit by COVID-19 and has ensured that all its major hospitals have specific units to cater for COVID-19 patients. Kinuthia says that he was first admitted to the ICU unit at the St. Louis Hospital in Paris between the 2nd and the 10th of April as doctors raced against time to ensure he was out of danger. Stephen says his experience in Europe is probably different from how things back home are working. With just about 200 patients, Kenya is now just feeling the upwards trajectory, that is the COVID-19 curve. And while only a few patients are in the ICU, Kenya says that majority of her patients are suffering mild symptoms.
So in France, they are not using chloroquine. They have their 3 antibiotics, which they are doing a research. And there's a research which is, giving very positive results.
In France, Kinouthia says only severe cases are being admitted into hospitals as they lack bed capacity to host the many patients they are still receiving. At the moment, priority is given to the seriously ill. While his journey to full recovery will be long, Stephen says that he is grateful to God for a second chance and the great healthcare system that cared for him while in hospital. As he was discharged into the arms of his wife, he is now looking up to them to continue giving him care at home.
Thank you for joining us this evening. What happens to those who don't win the fight here in the country?
Leila, well, that number currently stands at 10 here in Kenya, and their burials have had to take a different norm, especially when it comes to the COVID-19 here in the country. And this means that some of those burials have had to be done in 24 hours after death with just a handful mourners. But a burial in a Siaya of what until now was this morning was the latest fatality of COVID-19 here in the country seems to shift the debate from just how to manage public health and at the same time uphold the dignity of the death. Here is my report. 9. The number of souls who have paid the ultimate price as the county races to beat the pandemic. Those are the numbers. These are the faces. Their deaths as quick as their burials, now conducted under new government guidelines, limiting the time taken between death and burials and the number of people allowed to witness the same. But even with those involved in the disposal of bodies keen to observe the guidelines, there have been a few mishaps, as the family of the late James Oyugi found out. Hours after his demise, one of the most bizarre burials witnessed even in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, in the thick of the night, under the watchful eye of the police, healthcare personnel, fully kitted, hold his body draped in a body bag and unceremoniously tossed it into a shallow grave in what has turned out to be blatant disregard for both the law of the land and that of the community.
Video na wivu ni mimi. Nikaenda kuangalia ni hivi inafanyika ndugu yangu. Kilio linishika. Da kidogo na rushwa anatolewa. Na listen kichwa iende wapi? Kwa simu direct.
This somebody who was respectable in the community. Alafu sasa anakuja tu na natupo hivyo kama umbo. It doesn't make sense.
According to Ministry of Health regulations for disposal of COVID-19 victims, the deceased's family must be briefed about the dignified burial process and their rights to pay final respects for the deceased before the handling of the remains begins. The Public Health Act stipulates that funerals must only happen during the day, that is between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. The guidelines goes ahead to state that the body bag should be placed in a coffin, something that was conspicuously missing in Oyugi's case.
Tungemchukua, tumweke kwa coffin, kama ni mchana, tumzike kama ni asubuhi, hiyo saa 4, bora tu wamuombe, wampigie tu msalaba dogo tu, wamuombe tu kidogo na wamuziki.
Oyugi's burial, the latest of the victims of the COVID-19 disease, brings to fore the debate on how to strike a balance between the need to protect the public from infections and respect the culture and dignity of the deceased. This debate will soon land on the Senate's floor as the Siaya Senator seeks guidance on future handling of COVID burials. But before that happens, a senior cabinet secretary, also a native to the county and the cultures of the area, has pronounced himself.
And there's a very big risk of people leaning towards culture and forgetting that what has been done is in the overall interest of the immediate family, the extended family, and the family at large. So I would like our people to bear that in mind.
Aside from the deaths here in Kenya, 7 Kenyans have also lost their lives to the virus. Their remains will be interred where they passed on.
Now, sometimes the difference between life and death is the difference between life and death is deemed to be let me just take that again. Now, sometimes the difference between life and death in this pandemic is the quality of healthcare a patient receives. And Kenya is yet to register crisis COVID-19 in numbers. Even then, healthcare infrastructure and, of course, personnel are deemed insufficient to handle what is projected to be coming our way. My colleague Nayoma Sampao takes stock of how healthcare providers are surviving pandemic 16. Here is her report.
When the COVID-19 pandemic came calling, one group of people have had no choice but to answer. They suit up and head to the front line every day to fight an enemy that the world is yet to fully understand. Gladys Nyambura is amongst the hundreds of nurses already seeing firsthand the impact of the virus on patients.
One thing you had was fear, fear and fear and fear. We have never experienced this before, so obviously there's a challenge on our side.
She faces her fears head on. She has to, because her patients depend on her strength to assure them that all will be well. But even as she comforts and cares for her patients, she and others worry about their own personal safety. So far, 6 clinical officers have been infected with COVID-19 in Kenya. According to the Kenya Union of Clinical Officers, a survey carried out by the union shows that an estimated 7 out of 10 of every health workers in public health facilities have not received formal training on how to handle the COVID-19 pandemic.
A lot of anxiety, a lot of panic, not knowing what to do. You're scared of more on your side that you might get the infection. That is the most scary thing that you have.
Infections aside, the regulations limiting movements have also not spared the medics.
Before you remove that badge that you have, the scars are already on you, you know. Before you start explaining, I'm a medical person, I'm removing my badge, they're already on your neck.
These challenges are part of what the Kenya Medical Practitioners and Dentists Union wants addressed by the country's lawmakers in order to strengthen the country's response to COVID-19. They also want the workers shielded through the Occupational Injury and Benefits Fund that will cover all frontline workers, including emergency allowances. They also want them to be exempted from submitting pay as you earn for a year. But more importantly, at least for Gladys and her peers, is the provision of personal protective gear, the only barrier between them and the disease they face daily.
It's going to be a big challenge because we have families, but the other way around, it's going to be better because you're going not to be in too much contact with other people. But yeah, I know psychologically it's going to be tough.
Let us all spare a thought for those heroes and even say a prayer for them.
While they wait for the recruitment of other healthcare workers to help in the fight, those already in the trenches say they will not relent in their dedication to the service of their fellow Kenyans. They say that they will fight until COVID-19 is out of Kenya. Nayoma Sampao, NTV.
Well, my apologies, there is actually COVID-19 and not COVID-16, as I've mentioned there, slip of the tongue, I beg your pardon. Now, healthcare workers are equipped and at the same time needed here in the country, and those are efforts that are currently being done to ensure that health workers are fully kitted and equipped. Keep crop. Are we looking outside Kenya, or we can handle this within?
Okusa, it's the norm for Kenya to spend trillions of shillings importing different products, some because it cannot produce them locally, but some because of the lack of capacity to produce them in bulk. But in the face of coronavirus pandemic, which has disrupted supply chains, many countries, including Kenya, have been forced to look inwards and demand local solutions for the biting demand for medical and personal protective equipment. Take a look.
They say necessity is the mother of invention. But if you can't invent, you can innovate, just like Paul Kariuki and Samuel Cairo, who've developed a prototype ventilator, a machine fashioned to take over the body's breathing process when the lungs fail.
It is assembled with locally available materials. So after it is approved, we'll be able to produce more, but now we want to be producing them this way. We will be making them using 3D.
The group has already been commissioned by the government to produce a prototype ventilator which meets global standards in 10 days before they're allowed to go into mass production of the equipment. Their efforts will complement that of another group of students from Kenyatta University who are awaiting the government's nod to begin production of 200 ventilators every month. They are part of tens of other students in different universities currently burning the midnight oil in order to come up with solutions for the pressing challenges as the country battles the coronavirus pandemic.
This demonstrates the quality of students and the potential they have to take Kenya to the next level of becoming competitive in the area of invention and industrialization.
Disruption of supply chains by the outbreak has meant that many developing countries now have to turn to their sometimes neglected manufacturing industries for many of the products they normally import, and in Kenya, the sector has risen to the occasion. Many textile factories, including the Kitui County Textile Center, Shona EPZ Limited and Eldoret-based Rivertex East Africa, have shifted to mass production of personal protective equipment in order to meet the growing demand in the country.
We are able to do 2,700 pieces per hour, as you can see on the board there. And then also, we have, since there's a huge demand, we are also doing it for 24 hours. So in total, we are able to do at least 30,000.
You have no reason to doubt the products that come out of Kenya. That's my big message. You have no reason to doubt our capabilities. You have no reason to choose imported products in a supermarket over local products and have these, fake concerns around issues of quality.
While the government is taking note of these innovations, some simple ones, including this automatic hand-washing machine which dispenses liquid soap followed by water, could go unnoticed. But was innovation really dead in Kenya, or was it just not getting enough attention?
We have been very innovative. And Kenyan youth and Kenyan people have been very innovative. What has been missing sometimes is the capacity to commercialize these inventions. Banks can be very, very risk-averse sometimes, and if a product is untested, then they don't want to invest in it.
In 2018, Kenya imported 1.7 trillion shillings worth of goods, even as the government allocated only 2.4 billion shillings, which is just 2% of the total spending on university education, to research, science, technology, and innovation.
Well, not all contributions to the fight against the virus are coming from the young minds in the labs and factories. Our politicians too are giving, but with a small caveat. Melita, you have seen this in your county. What's the catch?
Kiprop, you're right. They are known for their visible generosity to members of the public in need. The pandemic has given them yet another chance to practice this, but instances have emerged where their motives have been called into question. Here is a look into why some are looking the gift horse in the mouth.
Give the poor money saved to assist a house help. Half of your meat portion to give to the needy, but without cameras. Without cameras.
For the country's politicians and sections of prominent people, cameras must be present when they give, and this COVID pandemic is no different. While efforts are now geared towards helping Kenyans stay safe through access to proper hand washing and use of sanitizers, as well as donations of household goods for the vulnerable in the society, politicians locked out of the limelight since the onset of the pandemic are clawing their way back in. Yes, Give or rather distribute other people's donations, but ensure that it is you who gets credit. Sanitizers donated to Nyeri County by Kibos Sugar Company, packaged for distribution, ensuring that the recipients do not forget who to thank for the generosity.
Currently, there is no other governor in Nyeri. The name is Mutahi Kahiga. And therefore, I want to ask the people of Nyeri, focus, let us see the bigger picture.
And the wave of popularity and fame-seeking seems to sweep even those who don't wear the political hats, leading sections of the society to question the logic behind spending more money on personal branding than increasing value by acquiring more of the donated items. Perhaps the reason why the government is now setting boundaries here.
Trying to gain political mileage out of a disease is as immoral as anyone could ever imagine. It is the worst of what we can see in terms of political maneuver.
The regulations are also key in protecting the dignity and safety of the vulnerable in the society, specifically to avoid situations like this witnessed in Kibra, where the recipients of the aid packages ended up potentially exposing themselves to not just the virus, but also physical harm.
Inakuja hapa watu wakati. Sisi wengine tupewe hata kadi. Hata wenye wanapata hapa kula. Alafu wanagawa usiku gani yeye wanagawanga.
Kurundikana kwa geti ya chief, tunangoja msaada. Na ilani hakuna hiyo msaada tunapata. Kama hakuna kazi, sisi tunaishi kwa manyumba. Kama hakuna corona Kenya, serikali tuachie sisi tuende makazi zetu.
The government is now setting up a pilot cash transfer program in a bid to support vulnerable Kenyans to buy food while curbing the spread of the virus. Melita Oletenges, NTV.
The stay-at-home directive is perhaps one of the drivers for the need for aid for the vulnerable in society. Lois, not all those who are keeping away from work are in need of such. In fact, they are reaping some unexpected benefits.
Melita, staying at home has come with mixed bag of fortunes for different cadres of Kenyans. Some, like this next family in Roiro, are enjoying the bonus time together as they recover lost time. Others, like in your story, are struggling to make ends meet. And in the midst of all this is the added threat of increased cases of domestic violence. Here's a look at how Kenyans are spending their time away from work and school. It is mid-morning on a workday and the entire Sam Githoko's household is at home. Their children are no longer in school. The parents are not at work. They are adhering to the containment measures announced by the government to try and reduce the rate of the spread of COVID-19.
Mimi ni mtu wa biashara, ni mtu wa kutoka mara nyingi. Sasa nimekaa kwa nyumba naona kama ni stress.
On any other day pre-COVID-19, Sam would be found in Western or Eastern Kenya, where he trades in non-food items while his wife operated her shop at Ruiru town. Now they are staying at home for 6 days of the week. Sam steps out once a week to replenish the family supplies.
Sabata vitu nyingi tunachukua kwa kibanda, si kama venye tulikuwa tunapita soko na chukua vitu soko ni a bit cheap. Sasa ni kila kitu ni kwa kibanda.
While the pandemic has kept them from their usual activities, they are adapting to the new normal. And their 3 children couldn't be happier to have both their parents at home. Their firstborn son, a special needs kid, has also adapted to the dictates of staying safe from coronavirus.
Tuko tumezoea kukaa na watoto kwa nyumba kila wakati. Na wale wanajua watoto ni watu tokotoko. Kila wakati wanasumbufu.
Sam and his wife are reaping the unexpected benefits of this situation.
Mara nyingi alikuwa anaingia nyumbani saa 4, saa 5, hata saa 6. Siku hizi tuko naye hapa. Paka hiyo kitu inanifurahisha, hata pengine nimenona hata ninajisikia nguo zinanikataa sababu.
Bibi yangu anapenda sana swimming. Hiyo kitu imekaa kando. Nimemwambia avumilie maji ya karai.
While the Githokos enjoy their new normal and family bonding time, this enforced situation is not going so well for many other couples, both locally and abroad. Lois Wangoi, NTV, in the county of Uasin Gishu.
Dan, you're working from home today, but a few days ago you had to go through a somewhat intense process of seeking some medical assistance over COVID-19 scare. We are so glad you are okay. Dan, how was that?
Thank you very much, Lois. First, it was bad, at least in as far as my body felt. I don't know if you've ever heard or know of someone who's had what they call the man flu. I have had it a number of times, and this time around it got worse since the coronavirus season. I got sick, had to get a COVID-19 test done, and between the tests and the results, well, you can find out as I walk you through my journey.
So on the last week of March, I caught a cold. That's what we believed it was. I actually got it from our 2.5-year-old daughter. She got better and she left me there wallowing in the discomfort of sickness. It got bad. I was still going to work. Eventually my voice started getting hoarse. I started having a bit of a runny nose. I had a rare cough. It was not dry though. Then there's a night I believe I slept badly, so my back was in pain. It got worse when I was still working. I remember on the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, but mine was full of drama, I guess. And I decided, you know what, I'm going straight to hospital. It felt even harder because the roads are so empty at that hour. So you could almost hear the echoes of silence. They did some tests and something had taken a hit on my immunity. And so the doctor then said that, he asked me of my travel. On 17th of February 2020, my colleague Eric Okoth and I left for New York. Our flight was going through Paris. So in retrospect, you see how significant these 2 points were. We're back in Nairobi again through Paris on the 23rd of February. So we got to JKIA and there was the testing that was done, you know, just using a temperature gun. That was all. Then we went home. They said my travel was still a bit far back. So he said, you know what, it would just be safe to just go and have a COVID-19 test done based on some of the symptoms, just to be sure. I went to KENYATTA National Hospital, the Bagathi branch, that is the infectious diseases unit. Told me that they do not do tests at night, and either way, they don't even have the capacity to accommodate extra people in their facility at the time. So they politely asked me to just go home and go back in the morning. So for me this was a bit of a red flag, because I'm like, what if I was actually positive? You don't know how I am getting home. Will I be disciplined enough to stay in isolation since I'm already unwell? I was in a very bad state. I was fatigued, I was tired, I was drained. By God's grace, I made it, you know. The next day, we dressed up and left for KNH Mbagathi. I was more nervous about that thing going into my nose than anything, than even the results, to be honest. And so I moved into the children's room for isolation while still taking my medication.
This is my first morning of isolation. This is the day that, like I said, I am expecting my COVID-19 test results.
Yes, Bella. It was hard. I can't have contact with my 3 girls, my wife and our daughters. It was difficult. When it came to prayer time in the evening, our usual evening devotion as family, I mean, I'm just in the house, but we're still doing it on Zoom.
Yeah? Yes, Bella? Not now, Mama. I'm yet to, play the music I want to plug in because I'm listening to my wife and my daughters as they prepare to go to bed. That's the closest I can really get to bond with them for now. On Friday, we are told that our test results will only be out possibly by Monday. It's a bit of a slightly heavy day. I'm like stuck in these walls. Knowing that my family needs me and I can't really be there for them as I should.
Our results were out Monday evening. We got them on Tuesday, and we were both negative. And I was feeling better by then. The man flu hit me hard, gotta be honest. I was in isolation for 4 to 5 days, and I'm fortunate enough to have the privilege of being able to stay home and not go to work. I thought about those people who may have been infected and did not have the chance, or they don't have the luxury to rest. They probably went about their business. 4 to 5 days, that is a loophole, if you ask me, for the community infection to happen. These guys said they didn't have the capacity to keep me there until my results are out. So how many people probably have gone and have been asked to go and isolate and may not have either the discipline or the luxury to take care? Loophole, in my view.
Now, my experience shed some light on the state of affairs in Kenya, the reality away from the press conferences and the announcements. And I'm really glad that my wife and I are all good, as well as our children. My wife has been very supportive. Let me just say that she set an example. That aside, that's the status in Kenya. Now, you are joined by my colleague Raymond Mijungu, who joined us live from Kampala. He works at NTV Uganda. Raymond, what are the numbers like? Do we have more people who have recovered and been discharged? Some good news?
All right, thank you so much, Dan. And of course, very sorry for what was happening to you in isolation. In Uganda today, 4 confirmed cases of COVID-19 who had earlier tested positive and tested twice negative have been released, bringing the total number of the released to 12. Now, that means that the country is making some successes in the fight against COVID-19. But the Minister of Health today tells us that they're moving the fight to the place at the border and Busia in Malaba, where many of the Ugandan goods are coming in. Yesterday, it was confirmed that 2 truck drivers tested positive for COVID-19 as they try to make their way into Uganda. So let's have a look at my story.
For Uganda, the new worry now is the borders that are bringing in the much-needed goods into the country. After a 2-week lockdown, which has now been extended for a further 21 days, the country will rely on imported goods to keep their markets alive. But with the importation role, a new worry occupies the Ministry of Health: truck drivers. A statement from the Ministry of Health on the newly confirmed 2 cases shows that both were truck drivers bringing in produce into the country. Uganda has tightened restrictions for truck drivers, requiring both checks for COVID-19 and a no-stop policy until they deliver goods.
As they reach our point, they wash hands, they sanitize, then we spray them. Those ones with temperatures above 38 and above, then those ones we isolate them and we keep them there for some time and then we rescreen. If the temperature is maintained or if the temperature is beyond that, then that one we are supposed to carry out further investigations.
The measures are all in an attempt to stop the community spread of the deadly COVID-19 virus. Uganda has now so far discharged 12 cases of COVID-19, but remains with a 55 confirmed cases tally. Raymond Mijungu, NTV.
Right, thanks Raymond. We can get him back on connection, but thanks for that and everyone on team coverage tonight. And now as the country continues to intensify its efforts to combat the disease, we asked you for your views on the work currently being done by the healthcare workers in this pandemic. Here are some of your thoughts.
Maisha yao na pia tungependelea serikali pia iwaangalie juu wanajaribu pia kung'ang'ana kusave maisha ya Wakenya. Jua akikuwa na PPE mzuri, hawezi wakapaniki katika kazi yao. Wanafanya kazi yao na moyo mmoja, juu wanajua at the end of the day watakuwa safe.
The government should at least give them a little bit sophisticated, advanced gadgets of which they should protect themselves, because with them they are in the first line in handling the victim of the virus.
Health workers are in psychological danger because they are straining.
Serikali itie mikakati ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba wafanyikazi hawa wa afya na wahudumu wa afya wanapata ile counseling pia. Sababu si jambo rahisi kuona magonjwa haya ama kwenda kufanya kazi katika ile hali ya kukua katika zile wards. Inaweza kukuadhiri hata akili yako na mawazo yako.
Because we know they are working like around the clock a lot and a long hours. So it wouldn't be bad if they are given something, just something to, as an incentive, something to make them feel appreciated. It's not about a time to making money, but we should appreciate, because we know the tough working ground they have currently.
Right, away from your views on what the health workers are doing out there, time now for our first break. We'll be right back after a few minutes, but here's a quick video of a team disinfecting the Kisumu maximum security prison, and measures the country's Director of Public Health says will help avoid the spread of the coronavirus. Now, the Kenya prisons has since stopped all visits to prison to stop the spread of the virus.
Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white clothes, towels and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it.
Sensitivity is a short, sharp pain that people experience when they have something hot or cold getting to the nerve of the tooth, causing that discomfort. If the sensitivity is left alone, it may get worse. Dentists recommend Sensodyne to their patients. It's able to get inside the tooth and calm the nerve of the tooth down, and the proof's in the results. It works.
Daily M-PESA transaction limits increased to 300,000 shillings. Do more on M-PESA daily to avoid handling cash. Safaricom is for you.
Disinfect and protect your home with Jik. Jik kills 99.9% of illness-causing germs. Disinfect floors, kitchen and bathroom surfaces, and wash white clothes, towels and dishcloths with Jik bleach. Just Jik it.
Kazi ni simple, si ndio? Umeona ring yangu?
Ring gani?
Ni za gold, pure gold. Si zile vitu za 20 bob zenye mnanuanga huko.
Madam sijaiba kitu yote maisha yangu.
Oh, so umeanza wizi hapa kwangu Nataka kuangalia bagi yako.
Sijachukua kitu yote madam.
Vitu zinapotea kwa nyumba, kwa hivyo ni muhimu tukiangalia kama watu wanaiba.
Anachukua shop iko pale via M-PESA, karibu na kwa Rasta. Ndio shop atatuchapilia usiku.
Hizi ni nini sasa?
Every day, we endeavor to provide you with the best real estate solutions. Own your dream home at Victory Gardens. Call us today on 0790 300 300.
Well, the news continues on NTV tonight. Police are investigating the circumstances surrounding the death of prolific author and journalist Professor Ken Walibora. The 56-year-old professor lost his life after being knocked down by a bus on Landis Road on Friday. The family has been looking for him since that day. Daniel Mule with a report.
Ni mimi mtoto wa mwalimu Ken Walibora.
A natural showman. Professor Ken Walibora's seemingly effortless command of his medium in both television and radio endeared him to his audiences. Now he is no more. Death's cruel hand snatched from the world a respectable journalist, teacher and renowned author, whose unremitting work ethic exemplified a fierce perfectionism. His books were a mainstay in secondary school literature studies. He is mostly remembered for his 1996 award-winning novel Siku Njema.
Ken alikuwa anapenda kazi yake. Alikuwa mtu mfanyikazi ambaye alikuwa anajitolea kama inavyohitajika. Alikuwa akienda zaidi, tunasema extra mile, kuhakikisha kuwa Kiswahili katika kampuni hii yetu ya Nation Media Group kimeimarika.
Mwaka jana tulikuwa pamoja tukitetea Kiswahili Dar es Salaam, na baadaye tukakutana pia Kampala kuzungumzia Kiswahili katika chuo kikuu cha Chambogo. Kwa hivyo Ken alikuwa mtetezi wa lugha ya Kiswahili.
Walibora had been missing since Friday. They had searched in hospitals and morgues without much success. This is Landis Road in Nairobi County, and this is where Professor Ken Walibora was hit by a matatu in that hit-and-run accident where he was seriously injured. He was crossing the road from this side of Muthurwa Market going to this side of Machakos Country Bus.
Alikimbizwa na ambulance KENYATTA National Hospital. Hiyo gari ilienda kashikiwa Buruburu. Driver akaandikisha statement, akaachiliwa na cash bail. So ni accident ilikuwa inajulikana, lakini hatukuwa tunajua ni nani huyu alikuwa amekufa. Hata vile alikuja huko Landis Road ya cross barabara kwa mguu, ndio hatujui alifikaje huko. Hiyo bado inafanya uchunguzi.
In his rural home in Bonde Village, Charanganyi in Trans Nzoia County, his kinsmen eulogized him as a dependable son as they plan to bury him this Friday.
Nikihitaji chochote amekuwa msaada, yani nikisema tu papa nimeishi hata sina sukari, amekuwa wa karibu sana, hata sitamaliza dakika 2 pesa imeingia kwa si.
Before his death, he was a full-time lecturer at Riara University. Earlier this month, he was in his office working on plans to launch a new institute, which the Vice-Chancellor had appointed him to spearhead.
Students have really connected with what he does in class, and he has left a lasting impact in the lives of many students.
Ken Walibora has died at 56 years of age. Aside from teaching and writing, he was an editor and news presenter for QTV, Nation TV and KBC. He also served as the Kiswahili Quality Manager at Nation Media Group.
Kutoka katikati ya jiji la Nairobi, katika Sema Nami, mimi ni Ken Walibora.
Daniel Mule, NTV.
Really sad, may his soul rest in peace. Let's take you to Bungoma, where the governor, Wycliffe Wangamati, has now washed his hands of the jerrycan scam, saying it is a creation of his detractors to settle political scores. Wangamati is facing accusations of profiting off the pandemic in the name of setting up a response. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is investigating claims that the county paid 10,000 shillings for each of the jerrycans, but the governor now says they were a donation. Leila Mohammed with that report.
Minutes of a meeting attended by 11 members of the COVID-19 emergency response team in Bungoma provide a glimpse into how the county was preparing itself for COVID-19. The team planned to acquire 600 20-litre tapped jerrycans, hand sanitizers, soap and 20,000 information flyers. But the county now faces an outpouring of questions on just who funded the project and by how much. The governor soon clarified that the jerrycans were a donation.
Sasa kama zimetoka kwa wadhamini, kwa nini waliandika ofisi ya governor kwamba yeye ndiye ametoa, na kwa nini walitoa pesa ya serikali wakisema wanaenda kununua vitu kupambana na hii ugonjwa ya COVID-19? Sisi tunapata ya kwamba hiyo ni ubadhirifu wa pesa.
Protocol demands you have to appreciate the donors. We know their names. 2, all donations must be appropriated in the County Assembly of Bungoma.
The EACC is now investigating allegations that the county made a fortune out of the coronavirus misfortune, having bought the jerrycans at 10,000 shillings each.
Na ni kama akona evidence saidi kuhusiana na pesa ambazo tuna investigate ambazo ni 11.9 million And then tunamngoja pia kwa committee agoja atupatie hiyo evidence.
In a letter from the county's Chief Officer for Health and Sanitation, dated the 18th of March and addressed to Bungoma County Referral Hospital's Medical Superintendent, the county also requested for 6,986,000 shillings for a public awareness campaign. The money was to be refunded in a week once the emergency fund had been approved.
The expenditure is too much. We have spent 6 million in 3 days, and then we don't know when Corona is going to end.
The governor says the county hasn't used any of the 100 million shillings emergency funds. The county assembly also says it is investigating a further 11 million shillings used by the county government without proper approval. Leila Mohammed, NTV.
There's a huge problem in the county of Bungoma. Let's do some politics now. And Deputy President William Ruto's allies now want the register of political parties to pronounce or produce documents submitted by the ruling party nominating new members to the National Management Committee. Now, the members of parliament claim the documents may have been forged since the party's leadership organ hasn't met since the last general election. NTV senior political affairs reporter Ken Mijungu with the fresh details of the fire that has engulfed the House of Jubilee.
Deputy President William Ruto's allies are still searching for answers as the fallout over the changes to the Jubilee Party's National Management Committee takes hold. Today, the Vice Secretary General of the party and Soi MP Caleb Kositani, Gatondo South MP Moses Kuria and Bahati MP Kimani Ngonjiri were knocking on the doors of the Registrar of Political Parties, demanding to know why she published the names of persons expected to sit in the National Management Committee without following due process.
It is very clear that Anne Rito purported to place a notice on the Kenya Gazette for the presumed change of office bearers, specifically members of the National Management Committee, without a backup of the minutes of the meeting that was supposed to have agreed on those changes.
In a tweet, DP Ruto on Tuesday noted that 146 MPs from the Jubilee Party had protested the move to replace the members, saying the changes were being championed by people he called heartless gangsters, taking advantage of the COVID-19 at a time when Kenyans were anxious about their health and survival. He quips, and I quote, "They aren't President Uhuru's men, they are crooks."
The only time he seems to come out is when the name Jubilee and 2022 are put in one sentence. His obsession with 2022 is what we are having a problem with.
In their 3-minute meeting at the office of the political party's registrar, the Vice Secretary General sought any documents or forms filed regarding the change or intended change to the Constitution of Jubilee. He also sought minutes of any National Executive Committee meeting or any other party organ meeting from September 2017. Kositani also sought minutes of any meeting held by the Jubilee Party from September 2017. The Ruto allies also sought any correspondences regarding decisions of the Jubilee Party on postponement of party elections. They also sought correspondences on the Jubilee Party of any resignation of any party official from September 2017 to date. In their letter, they also sought correspondence on appointment of National Party officials from September 2017 to date, among other party issues.
To my shock, I have not been given any document. What I have been given is a letter that the Office of the Registrar is still compiling the documents and will notify me once they are ready.
Hata wakati wengine wana accuse hizi ati tunapika siasa ya 2022. Wananchi na nyinyi watu wa media, ni nani iko kwa siasa ya 2022? Si ni wale wanakuja kuiba chama ili wafanye ile mambo wanataka naye.
Jubilee Party Secretary General Raphael Tuju, however, seemed to buttress a position held by the Registrar of Political Parties that the changes were done in accordance with the law.
Ukiona mzee kope yako juu ya meza, amewekelewa juu ya meza. Kwa sababu mzee kope hawezi panda juu ya meza. Ukiona hizi barua hizi, kuna yule amewekelea mzee kope kwa meza. We shall be moving to the political parties tribunal to force an election as soon as the current condition within the COVID situation allows. Mr. Tuju is in office illegally. All the other people are in office illegally.
Another march to the office of the Registrar of Political Parties is planned for Thursday morning, as they now narrow down their demands to specifics used to put up the Gazette notice that has caused the acrimony. Kennedy Muredi, NTV.
Well, very interesting indeed. It's either Caleb Kositany is not a Vice Secretary General, or there was no meeting. Whichever the case, you be the judge. Time now for another break. It's actually exactly 10 o'clock in the night. And as we take the break, take a look at this. Residents in South Windsor surprised Connecticut State Senator, that's Dr. Saud Anwar, with a parade to show their gratitude for the work he's been doing on the front lines as a lung doctor at Manchester Memorial Hospital. Now, the doctor invented a link through which a single respirator can be used to serve about 7 patients at the same time. So people marched to his house just to thank him. We'll be right back.
Sona moja imetengenezwa kwa njia spesheli ili kupambana na maumivu kwa haraka. Sona moja ina aspirin kama kiungo. Sona moja, kitulizo kamili. Maumivu yakizidi, pata ushauri wa daktari.
If we continue to behave normally, this disease will treat us abnormally.
The world-famous Smallfix and saw the difference. Let's see how absorbent Smallfix is. Smallfix, thanks to its ultra-absorbent particles, can keep more liquid than the other diaper brand, so you can use it comfortably all day long. All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Smallfix.
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
All right, time now to make sense of the cents. The National Treasury has tabled the second supplementary budget for the financial year 2019-2020, in which there is a net reduction of about 74.4 billion shillings in planned expenditure for the financial year ending June 30th, 2020, which now stands at 1.9 trillion shillings, with development expenditure having been slashed by 98.7 billion shillings, even as recurrent expenditure is revised upwards to 24.3 billion shillings. Now, the budget realignment comes against a backdrop of adverse business environment occasioned by the COVID-19 pandemic. And Kenya's economic growth is projected to slump to just 1% in 2020 as the economy suffers a beating from the spread of the COVID-19. This is according to the International Monetary Fund, which projects that the global economic will contract by 3% this year. Now, Julian Samboko with the details.
If the forecast by the International Monetary Fund is anything to go by, Kenya is set for the slowest growth by its economy since it suffered a slump in the face of the 2008 post-election violence. The forecast by the IMF will also see Kenya post the slowest economic growth in East Africa and the second largest year-on-year decline in growth, behind Rwanda, which is projected to see its growth plunge from 10.1% in 2019 to 3.5% this year. On April 13, 2020, the International Monetary Fund approved debt relief for 25 low-income countries, a cushion that Kenya missed owing to its status as a low-middle-income economy. IMF's chief economist Gita Gopinath has described the present crisis as the Great Lockdown.
This is a crisis like no other, which means there is substantial uncertainty about the impact it will have on people's lives and livelihoods.
The IMF further warns that developing economies such as Kenya face considerable risk owing to limited resources to adequately respond to the emerging challenges. This comes just a day after a section of members of parliament challenged the reduction of VAT from 16 to 14%, citing loss of much-needed revenue by the government to respond to the crisis.
The most reliable sources of income for any government is VAT, income tax, and these other predictable ones. How are we going to stabilize the health sector when this thing boomerangs, as is predicted by health specialists, if we are sending money away?
That by this particular proposal, Honorable Speaker, we are going to lose revenues to the tune of 49.5 billion shillings in one quarter. Maybe we should have been asking ourselves, would we rather have this 49.5 billion shillings and be able to offer food rations to the people of Kenya?
Growth forecasts for Kenya's economy give quite a varied picture. The central bank, in its March 2020 Monetary Policy Committee meeting, projected 3.4% growth for 2020. The National Treasury, on the other hand, is expecting anything below 3% this year. The IMF now projects just 1%. What is clear, however, is that growth will decline in 2020. Julian Amboko, NTV.
Well, not a good projection from the IMF. Now, Absa Bank Kenya has restructured loans worth 8.3 billion shillings in light of the request from the borrowers for more favorable terms of repayment due to the adverse effects of COVID-19. Now, this comes barely a month after the executive arm of the government, the Central Bank of Kenya, and the Kenya Bankers Association entered into an agreement with banks to afford borrowers relief in view of the economic downturn caused by COVID-19. The restructured amount accounts for about 4.2% of the bank's loan book, which stood at 194 billion shillings at the close of 2019. The restructuring comes alongside a raft of measures by the central bank to reform credit referencing in the country. And the Cooperative Bank is accelerating the payment of dividends in a bid to boost the welfare of members of the cooperative movement. In light of the COVID-19 pandemic, the bank will issue the dividends without holding an AGM in line with the Capital Markets Authority's guideline as a measure to help curb the spread of COVID-19. Now, the group's financial results for the year ended 31st December of last year were announced on the 20th of last month, with the shareholders notified of the boards of directors' approval and recommendation of payment of the first and final dividend of 1 shilling per share. Now, the total dividend payout will stand at 5.9 billion shillings.
NTV Business News in association with KCB Internet Banking.
We can always talk about your account online whenever you like.
Register at your nearest branch for KCB Internet Banking today.
And that's business. After this break, we take a look at how the rest of the world is coping with the pandemic. Meanwhile, Thais are flocking Bangkok's Chinatown to sell their gold jewelry as the price of the precious metal spikes and the economy tanks due to the coronavirus pandemic. Now, gold side to a 7-year high following the global moves led by the U.S. to reinflate the economies with trillions of dollars of the stimulus measures that has boosted the price of gold across the world, tempting many to sell their stocks.
When you're facing stubborn stains, you're always in a fierce fight. Clean Soft kicks out stains. Kimateki.
Discovered the world-famous Smallfix and saw the difference. Let's see how absorbent Smallfix is. Smallfix, thanks to its ultra-absorbent particles, can keep more liquid than the other diaper brand, so you can use it comfortably all day long. All babies deserve a high-quality diaper. You should also try Smallfix.
Right, let's go beyond our borders. And global efforts to join forces against the coronavirus faltered Wednesday after U.S. President Donald Trump froze the funding for the World Health Organization, igniting a chorus of criticism from world leaders who urged solidarity in the face of a crippling economic crisis. Now, this comes as America reports more than 15,000 cases of COVID-19, with the death toll approaching the 1,000 mark. Here is what else is happening around the world.
Leaders around the globe fired back at the U.S. president, who initially downplayed the dangers of a virus that has now killed more people in the United States than any other country. WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom said on Twitter, adding that the organization's singular focus is on working to serve all people to save lives and stop the COVID-19 pandemic. Musa Faki Mahamat, the chairman of the African Union Commission, has described the decision as deeply regrettable. UN Chief Antonio Guterres and billionaire Bill Gates have also criticized President Trump. The U.S. president's shock move came as some countries experiment with loosening lockdown measures, ushering the planet into a new and uncertain phase of pandemic that has killed more than 125,000 people worldwide and infected at least 2 million. In Europe, Denmark became the first country on the badly hit continent to start reopening schools, while Finland lifted a travel blockade on the Helsinki region. Italy and Spain have also allowed some business to restart after signs both are finally flattening the curve following weeks of punishing death tolls. In Africa, South African health authorities have set up a testing site in the informal settlement of Diepsloot in Johannesburg. Though they were required to wear face masks and gloves,
Koreans nevertheless headed to the polls Wednesday and delivered a strong show of support for President Moon Jae-in, commending his handling of the epidemic.
Well, just a small correction. The numbers reported there that 15,000 is actually Africa of cases, and of course the 1,000 mark is also registered in Africa and not America. Time now for another break, actually our last. Sports news next.
Kazi ni simu, tusindio? Umeona ring yangu?
Ring gani?
Ni za gold, pure gold. Si zile vitu za 20 bob zenye mnanuanga huko.
Madam sijaiba kitu yote maisha yangu.
Oh, so umeanza wizi hapa kwangu Nataka kuangalia bagi yako.
Sijachukua kitu yote madam.
Vitu zinapotea kwa nyumba, kwa hivyo ni muhimu tukiangalia kama watu wanaiba.
Anachikile shop iko pale hivi ya M-PESA, karibu na kwa Rasta. Ndio shop atatuchapulia usiku. Hizi ni nini sasa?
Every day, we endeavor to provide you with the best real estate solutions. Own your dream home at Victory Gardens. Call us today on 0790 300 300.
Time now to play, and sports and betting company Mozart has donated health equipment worth some 10 million shillings towards the fight against the coronavirus. According to the betting company, this equipment and kit will be distributed to at least 10 counties around the country. Now, the equipment, which include masks and hygiene products, was received by the Council of Governors Chairperson Wycliffe Oparanya. Kenya, like other countries around the globe, is currently battling the spread of the coronavirus. According to the latest figures, Kenya has 225 confirmed cases, and the government has put strict measures in place to curb the spread.
We've just been in the market for about 2 years and a half, and we are sure that next time we should be able to cover all the counties. We have Nyandarua County, Baringo County, Bomet County, Kisii County, Kwale County, Siaya County, Embu County, Kisumu County, Kakamega County, Kitui County, and Nakuru County.
What I want to clarify is that we are not receiving the 10 million. We are receiving goods worth 10 million.
Not money.
Not money.
Yes.
You should make it clear.
Now, former Manchester United star Marouane Fellaini was discharged on Tuesday after spending more than 3 weeks in a Chinese hospital being treated for the coronavirus. The 32-year-old midfielder, the only player known to have contracted the disease in the Chinese Super League, will now spend 14 days in quarantine for further observation. His club, Shandong Luneng, said the Belgian international said on March 22nd that he had tested positive for the virus, having just returned to China, but assured the fans that he was feeling fine. Fellaini posted videos of himself on Instagram exercising in his room while in hospital in the eastern city of Jinan. Fellaini moved to China last year after 11 seasons in England with the United and Everton. He enjoyed a productive first season in China, scoring 12 goals in 34 matches and providing 5 assists. Well, we've taken a lot of your time. It's actually 19 minutes past the top of the hour. Thank you so much for watching NTV tonight. My name is Ken Mijungu and Flora Ten on the other side with sign language interpretation tonight. Just remember, even as we leave to go home, to always observe the simple rules that the government has put in place. Very basic: wash your hands every so often with soap and water, sanitize